The man's eyes surveyed the room as he began to speak. A life of flight is a cruel thing. I have seen numerous battles and escaped the clutches of death too many times to count. Thousands of men once followed my call, but I am now without land, army, or title. All that I have left is my quest for vengeance. Precious time passes as I speak, so I will be blunt. Doom rapidly approaches your land, and you must be ready for it. The armies of the accursed Tamerlane draw ever nearer, watering the ground with blood. This warlord is the greatest scourge ever seen in all Asia. If you will listen, I will tell you of his conquests, of the terror that he has inspired. Born into the Barlas, nomads inhabiting the Central Asian steppe, Tamerlane was bred from birth to be a warrior. He spent his youth as a mercenary in the service of the local chieftains, but soon rose to power when his father, a chieftain himself, died. At this time, Transoxiana was divided between four powers. In the west lay the White Horde and the Blue Horde, mere shadows of the former glory of the Golden Horde. In the east were the two wings of the declining Chagatai Khanate. Tamerlane set his sights on these divided rivals. He was outnumbered, but he had a plan. Toktamish, a chieftain challenging his uncle Urus for rule of the White Horde, had sent messengers to Tamerlane seeking his support. If Tamerlane could defeat Urus and install Toktamish in his place, then Tamerlane could rely on the support of a powerful ally.
The feeble lords of this steppe will tremble in fear at the sound of our thundering hooves.
تيار معي.
Have no love for Urus Khan. If you will help me slay him, I will take command of the White Horde and help you conquer Transoxiana.
Sire, our scouts have identified the weaknesses of our enemies. If we strike at their soft underbelly, we will break their will to fight. Tamerlane has been wounded. Return him to Samarkand to recover.
Turn back now, Tamerlane, and I will spare your worthless life.
Without a cure. Fear not, for I shall once again take the field.
Slain. 1,000 curses on you, Tamerlane and Tokamesh. The White Horde follows me now. Together, Tamerlane, we will conquer all of Transoxiana.
My men.
You may use our dock to fish in the Aral Sea. Lands. To arms! To arms! Our walls have repelled far mightier conquerors than you. invaders approach our farmland. Send forth all riders! Tamerlane's forces are attacking our trade routes! Stop them!
Chagatai Khans will never again hold sway over the Silk Road. Let us see the Chagatai Khans field armies without food. Sow the fields with salt. The frail blue horde is no match for our forces. Red Fortress has claimed enough lives. Raze it to the ground! On Volcos shall stand no more! I was a common brigand when I first entered these lands. Now I am a mere of all of Transoxiana.
As a child, Tamerlane had been dragged into Samarkand in chains by the Mongols. Now, all of Transoxiana was his to command. The leaders of the rival hordes all flocked to him to pledge their loyalty. The wind roared, whistling through the hall. Flames flicked in the great fires burning within, the distorted shapes resembling the forms of agile warriors. The lucky few that did not submit were destroyed with fire and sword. Towers were built from their bones. Tamerlane was now a great Amir, O Lord, but his thirst for conquest was far from over. Convinced that my guest knew a great deal about this Tamerlane, I asked him for more insight. I had heard that Tamerlane had been maimed by arrow wounds to his hand and leg. How could his armies accept a lame man as their leader? A fair question, he answered. It is said that Tamerlane and his fellow tribesmen agreed to decide who would lead them by a foot race. Although Tamerlane's men ran more swiftly, he cast his cap onto the stake marking the goal, and thus won the race. This man seemed cunning as a fox, a dangerous adversary for any commander. I asked my guest to continue his tale. Tamerlane gazed southwest to Persia, a land torn by strife ever since the fall of the Khanate. Persia was vast, its terrain a challenge to any ambitious conqueror. It would not be easy to take. Tamerlane, however, could count on the support of his ally Toktamish, who had reunified the Golden Horde. Together, they would ride down the squabbling Persian kingdoms.
Descend upon the cities of Persia, my riders! Strike fast and hard at our enemies!
Salam.
Amir, we should hasten to press our advantage. Well-directed actions can sap our enemies of their strength.
We have raided more supplies for you, Tamerlane. These laborers will work for you, Tamerlane.
Emmerings?
Bargay mı?
Undefended targets simply beg to be plundered.
Düşündüm.
Armies will surely blame us for the sacking of their monastery, Tamerlane. If you bring us the relic you found in the ruins, we will join you against Tabriz.
Derhal Kuzeymen.
Kurgay mı?
We have raided more supplies for you, Tamerlane.
Tayyar mı? Selam.
These horse archers will help you in your battles.
Aynen. Kaan Açkaymen.
These laborers will work for you, Tamerlane.
Kuhraymen. Hazır düşündüm. Hazır. Raymen.
You are a man of your word, Tamerlane. Together, we shall crush Tabriz.
Raymen. Derhal Kuhraymen. Raymen.
These mountain scum shall plunder the caravans to Mecca no longer. Hurl the prisoners from the crags.
Hazır.
These towers, our sentries can spot incoming supplies and prevent them from reaching Herat.
Emriniz Hob Emiri.
Deprived of their water supply, the defenders of Zaranj cannot survive for long.
Chobanid docks destroyed, we alone shall fish the Caspian Sea. The citadel at Zaronj is no more! Sistan will pay homage to me now! Towers of human skulls will replace the fortifications of Herat. Chauvinids will never again claim the lands of the Ilkhanate as their own.
We have grown powerful together, Tamerlane. But only one man can rule the hordes of the steppe.
War it is then? So be it. Toktamesh, while you still can. My hordes will pursue you all the way to Russia!
Toktamesh's betrayal brought Tamerlane to a rare burst of fury. The man that he had regarded as a son, for whom he had sweated and bled, had stabbed him in the back. Tamerlane was forced to halt the Persian campaign to cope with this treachery. Thousands of battle-hardened cavalrymen ceased their pillaging and thundered northwest through the steppe to the lands of the Golden Horde, and its allies in Russia. As if foreshadowing the tale to come, the snow of early spring began to fall outside. Winters lasted a long time in these parts, and even the nobles in the hall, clad in their furs, shivered. Tamerlane's vengeance was fearsome to behold, the men whispered. The blasts of wind intensified, snuffing out some of the torches within the hall. Servants bustled about, tending to the meat roasting over the fire. The scent of cooked birds, game, and mutton filled the air. This was the first time that Tamerlane's forces had ventured into Europe. The winters were harsh, and Toktamish surely hoped that the biting cold and far-flung supply lines would prove too much for the wily tactician. The armies of the Golden Horde burned crops and took all they could carry as they retreated. Toktamish knew that Tamerlane would show no mercy. Terrifying reports reached his ears of torched villages and mountains formed from the bones of the slain. Wherever Tamerlane went, it seemed that flock of carrion birds were never far behind. Entire towns surrendered upon hearing of the brutal destruction of one of their neighbors. Toktamish had no choice but to engage the rampaging forces of his enemy. The armies met near the banks of the Kondarcha River sometime during the early weeks of the summer. Crows and vultures circled above the field, an ominous foreshadowing of the carnage to come.
Drive to the center and smash these fools through the ice! Strike for flank us! Deploy our reserves to hold him off! The enemy forces flee helplessly before us! Now the path is open for us to strike at Toktamish's heartland in Russia!
Bargaymen, derhal Kulgaymen.
We have gravely underestimated the power of Tamerlane's army.
Perhaps it would be wise for us to join him against Toktamish.
Agreed.
Reinforcements have arrived through the Caucasus.
Emrinizkaya madamem.
Mocks us with the construction of a monument in Astrakhan. This cannot go unchecked.
This food will feed many horsemen.
Kazan is ours! Now their renowned craftsmen will construct siege engines for us.
Undefended targets simply beg to be plundered. This food will feed many horsemen.
This city will regret having ever opposed me. Ah! With his empire aflame, Toktamish will have no choice but to flee like a craven to Lithuania.
Raging fires, torrents of blood, piles of ash, the clash of iron, and the screams of the dying. This was the horrors that Tamerlane visited upon the cities and people of the Golden Horde. The cities of Ryazan, Sarai, Astrakhan, Azov, and Ukek were reduced to rubble. All that remained, aside from the ruins, were the towers of bones that were built from the corpses of the dead. Those who survived were driven like sheep to march in unspeakable cold. Toktamish had no choice but to flee west to Lithuania. Tamerlane was determined not to let the traitor escape, but word soon reached him of a rebellion within his homeland. Leaving the hunt in the hands of two of his generals, Tamerlane swiftly returned home to restore order, at the point of a blade. Listening to the stories of the stranger had stirred our appetites, and we eagerly began to devour our meal. I invited the old man to sit next to me. I still thought that this Tamerlane was more myth than man. Surely he had been beaten in a battle at least once. The man has the cunning of a wolf and the composure of an owl. In some battles, he strikes hard at the center of the enemy line, while in others, swift horsemen outflank the opposition. Then they feign a retreat to bait the enemy into a trap, a storm of arrows. When Tamerlane decided to cross the Khyber Pass into India, a different and terrifying challenge faced him. The armies of the Delhi Sultanate ruled the battlefield through the powerful elephants, monstrous beasts known to crush a horseman with a single foot. Drawing up his lines, the clever warlord waited to spring his latest trap.
Shah Tughlaq relies on the charge of his armored elephants, but he has no idea what is coming.
Now charge, my mahouts!
Send forth the flaming camels! Ha! The elephants fear my camels and stampede back towards their own lines! Press the attack! Nothing now stands between us and the riches of Delhi. Let us claim them for our own.
Inspired by our piety, Ghazi troops have arrived from the west to join us. We can use the resources that the villagers had stored here. Inspired by our piety, Ghazi troops have arrived from the west to join us.
Salam.
Emriniz?
Khan Açkaymen.
We have destroyed one of Delhi's castles. 4 more still stand. Indian merchants had much gold stored in this dock.
Bear for looting my lands, Tamerlane.
merchants had much gold stored in this dock. We have destroyed the second enemy castle. 3 remain. Three of Delhi's castles lie in ruins. Only 2 still stand. Four of Delhi's castles have fallen. 1 more, and the city will be ours. Indian merchants had much gold stored in this dock.
Delhi is ours. Its vast riches will be more than enough to finance my future conquests.
The Indian army relied on the charge of its dreaded elephants to shock their enemies and drive them into disorder. No stranger to the art of war, Tamerlane knew this. In a stroke of genius, he loaded the camels in his baggage train with straw and wood and set them aflame, whipping them toward the enemy lines. The sight terrified the elephants, who doubled back and trampled their own men. The battle was a rout. 200 years' worth of Indian treasure was loaded onto a train of wagons and carried back to Samarkand. In response to an uprising, Tamerlane's armies reduced the jewel of northern India to a charnel house. death and fire mingled in a putrid stench that enveloped Delhi for weeks. Still, Tamerlane was not satisfied. There was unfinished business to the west. Silence gripped the court as the narrative evoked fear and awe. The meal had been finished for some time, and the fires were beginning to die low. If Tamerlane turned west, he surely would have collided with the mighty Ottoman Empire. Would he even dare to do such a thing? For some time, the local Turkoman tribes of the Levant had been requesting aid against Ottoman aggression. With his army rested and his coffers full of Indian riches, Tamerlane was ready for more bloodshed. He knew there was more than one way to motivate an army. Religious fervor and promises of land and plunder drove his men forward. This land was familiar with the terror of previous invasions, but nothing could prepare them for the onslaught that lay ahead. Thirsting for glory, Tamerlane's armies flooded across mountains, plains and rivers to terrorize Armenia, Georgia, and the Levant.
The feeble states of the Levant lie at our feet. Let us show them the true meaning of fear. Tamerlane's horde has destroyed one of our trading posts.
As the air fills with smoke, local dignitaries flock to us with the false hope of trading their gold for their lives. Dismayed by the slaughter, enemy envoys hasten in vain to offer us gold in exchange for leaving their lands.
How can we catch fish to trade without our dock on Lake Van?
Amir, this Turkoman village has offered to help supply our horde.
Hazır. Derhal tuhalel.
our town center! Is there nothing we can do to make you leave?
Hazır. Emrinizde madem tüm gülünler. Emriniz tayyar men. Hazır. Emriniz.
What on earth? Our monastery is now a pile of rubble!
As the air fills with smoke, local dignitaries flock to us with the false hope of trading their gold for their lives.
Kurallanırlar.
No! Now our eastern trade routes are lost!
As the air fills with smoke, local dignitaries flock to us with the false hope of trading their gold for their lives.
Emriniz. Kurallanırlar. Tüm gülünler. Tayyar men.
Dismayed by the slaughter, enemy envoys hasten in vain to offer us gold in exchange for leaving their lands.
Kuraimen.
Our castle guarding the eastern gate has fallen. Somebody help us. The castle guarding the road south is now a pile of rubble. Will nothing stop the marauding Tamerlane?
Tamerlane dares to attack our merchants. He will pay for his vile actions.
Tamerlane has destroyed our bastion near Damascus. I fear we may not hold the Levant much longer.
As the air fills with smoke, local dignitaries flock to us with the false hope of trading their gold for their lives.
تيار من
Tamerlane.
southern citadel lies in a smoking pile of rubble. Will these Tatars never leave us alone?
Ashes and rubble are all we leave behind. But the wealth we have plundered will ensure that my line prospers for eternity.
Tamerlane's forces ran rampant, looting and burning as they went. For a land that had only recently experienced the plague, this scourge must have seemed to signal the end of the world. Although he was known for his military campaigns, Tamerlane was also a patron of the arts. When a city was sacked, the artisans and scholars were spared and sent to his capital at Samarkand, where they created a vibrant blend of cultures. Populations who resisted him, however, were not spared. After his siege had broken the Armenian fortress of Van, Tamerlane ordered its inhabitants hurled from the crags. Just like Hulegu, roughly a century before, Tamerlane showed particular cruelty to the city of Baghdad. Each man in Tamerlane's army was required to bring him 2 heads. The warriors slaughtered the population of the city, then slew the prisoners they had brought with them. It is said that to satisfy Tamerlane's command, some even slew their own wives. For the survivors of this savagery, it seemed as if the sun would never rise again. The relationship between Tamerlane and the Ottoman Sultan Bayezid was one of great enmity. The two of them had been exchanging scathing letters for years. Finally, Tamerlane had the opportunity to crush his rival, whose armies were weary from wars in Byzantium and Hungary. Even so, the Ottoman Empire was no trifling opponent, its army driven by intrepid leadership and the power of its Janissaries. The Ottoman force marching to meet Tamerlane was large, but divided. Turks, Serbs, Tatars, and various other vassals all contributed troops to this powerful yet volatile force. If some of them could be pried away and convinced to defect, the tide would turn in Tamerlane's favor. This would be his greatest test yet. The fate of 2 empires hung in the balance.
Bayezid has made camp across the river to the south. We do not yet have the numbers to take the fight to him. So, we should focus on raiding his outlying supply stores and camps.
Our spies report that the loyalty of the auxiliary troops accompanying Bayezid is in question. We should visit their camps and see if we can pry them away from him.
I am impressed by your conquest, Tamerlane, but I demand one more display of strength. Eradicate the Ottoman supply camps southwest of here, and we will gladly join you. I would help fight the Ottomans, but my men are inexperienced. If you bring 5 elite Keshiks to my citadel to train them, I will join you and convince the Kara Tatars to do the same.
Derhal efendim. Hazır.
Emriniz?
Emret efendim.
I never doubted you for a second. Come on, men. We serve a new lord now.
Kurgayman.
Without this training ground, the Turks will field fewer janissaries.
Selam.
Emriniz?
Derhal Kurgayman. Kurgayman.
Salam. Derhal Kurgayman. Kurgayman.
The Turks will not be using these horses anytime soon. We have seized Turkish weapons and armor from this blacksmith.
A deal is a deal, Tamerlane. We will be there for you when the time comes.
The grain in these mills will feed our men now. Bayezid's Serbian auxiliaries seem to have left some caltrops here. We have seized Turkish weapons and armor from this blacksmith. Without this training ground, the Turks will field fewer janissaries. Let us see Bayezid fire his cannon without this gunpowder. We have captured some Ottoman siege engineers. The Turks will not be using these horses anytime soon.
We will never desert Bayezid. Death to you, Tamerlane!
see Bayezid fire his cannon without this gunpowder. The Turks will not be making use of the provisions stored in this market.
We will crush your forces on these plains, Tamerlane. Prepare for battle.
Send your best, Craven. Not a one will survive.
Kurgay mı? Kurgay mı?
Stefan Lazarevich is wounded. What hope have we now against the Tatars?
Ha! The enemy is breaking into a full rout. Ride them down into the dust.
Amir, Sultan Bayezid has fled the field and taken refuge in his mountain fortress to the south.
He may flee as far as he likes, but we will track him down as a wolf does his prey.
Emriniz Bargaymen.
We thank you for weakening the Turks for us, but it really is past time you left our lands now.
Ha! I will burn your city, just like the others.
You will try.
Tamerlane, you may trade at my markets if you like. My men are trained and ready to fight. We ride with you, Tamerlane.
Düşündüm. A renegade has informed us that Smyrna depends on shipments from Europe for wood and gold. If we destroy the outer defenses of its harbor, the rubble will fall into the sea, causing supply ships to be dashed to pieces on the rocks.
Excellent. Execute the deceitful traitor, and prepare the attack on the harbor of Smyrna.
The merchants supplying this city will meet a foul end on these sharp rocks.
Our great stronghold lies a smoking ruin. Flee! Flee before the Tatars kill us all!
surrender! Just spare me, O great Tamerlane! I beg you!
No adversary can stand his ground against me! I am a titan among mortals! A harbinger of devastation! And the architect of an empire without bounds!
The Battle of Ankara was a catastrophe for the Ottomans. Never before had they suffered the disgrace of having the Sultan captured in battle. Turning his armies around, Tamerlane left Anatolia in chaos. It is only a matter of time before he seeks another victim. The man ended his tale on that foreboding note. I realized that I had to prepare my kingdom lest my lands appear ripe for the picking. I ordered everyone to retire to their quarters. We would discuss this new danger in the morning, with clear and ready minds. Suddenly, the doors burst open, and a servant rushed towards me. Sire, a messenger from the Waldrod's called Tamerlane is here to speak to you. He claims that you are harboring someone of interest to him. I turned to the old man who had not heard the messenger, and asked for his name. His weary, dark eyes met mine, and he answered in a grim voice. I am Toktamish Khan, of the blood of Genghis Khan, and the rightful ruler of the Golden Horde. Landless and friendless, all I have left is my tale.
Take both.